Hello and welcome to Azreality Gaming. My name is Dustin, and today we are going to review Atelier Ryza 2 and determine three things. Is Atelier Ryza 2 worth playing? Do I have to play Atelier Ryza 1 first to understand part 2? And what about Atelier Ryza 3? What should I do with that? I'm a big fan of the Atelier series and was excited to dive into the sequel of Atelier Ryza, Everdarkness and the Secret Hideout. I've done a review of that game that can be found in the description or a link here on the screen. So if you're curious about the original Ryza game, make sure to check it out. Now onto Atelier Ryza 2, Lost Legends and the Secret Fairy was developed by Gust and Koei Tecmo on December 3rd, 2020, and released to Switch, PS4, and PC. The game was very well received and shipped over 150,000 copies in the first week of release. As of today, Atelier Ryza 2 is one of the most successful Atelier games in the series, with more than 1.3 million units sold between Ryza 1 and Ryza 2. There is a lot of excitement around the upcoming release of Atelier Ryza 3, Alchemist of the End and the Secret Key, which releases on March 24th, 2023. And many people want to know if Atelier Ryza 2 is any good and should you play it before Ryza 3. So let's get into that review. Gameplay and combat. One of the highlights of this game for me is the same with many of the Atelier series. That is, the gathering and crafting aspects of the game. I really enjoy scavenging the land for new materials to test new recipes to craft. Atelier Ryza 2 really went up a notch compared to Ryza 1 with regards to different locations you can and methods to gather. There is now the ability to swim underwater and gather materials that way, and with your new mount that is able to dig up really good materials that you would not normally find in a specific zone you are in. You still have the same tools as before, such as the scythe, axe, bomb rod, fishing pole, bug net, etc., but of course you can upgrade them so that they can acquire higher quality materials. The crafting system in Atelier Ryza 2 is another awesome feature. It's deep and complex enough to keep players interested, but not as hard as to learn like, say, Atelier Sophia 2, which has this Tetris column style game built into it as well, which is kind of confusing. There are similarities to how you learn recipes with Ryza 1. You can use SP points to level up your alchemy skill tree, or learn by experimenting with new recipes you have to unlock new ones. As you play through the game, you start to unlock all kinds of new recipes that are specific for the storyline progression. It's really satisfying to see your creations come to life, and it adds an extra layer of strategy to the gameplay. The combat is still action turn-based, which has a meter to show when your character can act. This timer does not stop and wait for you to choose commands, so you'll need to learn and control the mechanics quickly if you want to excel at this part of the game. There are many flashy combos and ways you can blast your foe into pieces. A lot of them are very fun to pull off and always feel like your efforts are visually rewarded. There are still a lot of similarities to Ryza 1 here, with regards to the combat, and I would say less innovation than other aspects of the game. There are the additions of core drives, which put simply is all about using items in battle to trigger specific combinations to unleash an uber ability that coincides with it. So for example, if you use 3 bombs in combat with Ryza, you'll trigger 4-star Aurora ability that does massive damage and stuns. I still really enjoy the combat, but do like to slow things down from time to time with a true turn-based mode instead of feeling rushed to click through buttons. I like the puzzle introduction to the game, where you are trying to research and find clues to complete the maps of specific ruins you visit. By completing all the research and clues, you are rewarded with a ton of SP that you can use to learn new recipes, a great way to get a boost and learn about the story and character interactions. You can probably skip these if you wanted to, but I would recommend trying them and see for yourself. Some of the areas require a specific amount of research progress to unlock a recipe in order to even proceed, so keep that in mind if you try to skip them all, as you may not be able to do 100%. Gameplay, combat score, 9 out of 10. Story. One of the things I really enjoyed about Atelier Ryza 2 was the story. It follows the character Ryza as she embarks on a new adventure into the big city on behest of her friend Tao, who invited her to investigate some new ruins. Along the way, she meets a cast of interesting and well-developed characters, each with their own motivation and personalities. The original cast of characters from Ryza 1 are still there and become available as you progress through the story, but a handful of new characters are introduced that make the game fun and refreshing. There are a lot of characters that aren't playable, but still an important part of the story, and has a bit of dating sim mechanic to it, where you try to build up your friendship with your teammates and others in the city. The feature is not in your face, but it is needed to be able to progress certain aspects of the story or unlock certain boosts. So if you find yourself stuck and not knowing where to go next, then spend some time talking to your friends and see where that leads you. The plot is full of twists and turns, and the writing is well done and very humorous. There are some cheeky moments and good-natured razzing here and there with all the characters that only serves to build on the quality of the story and interactions. One thing to note, if you have played the original Ryza game, the characters you interact with will have more depth and attachment. The relationships between Ryza and Claudia, for example, take on some heartfelt emotions that really make you love the writing and the character development. Story, 9 out of 10. Next up, characters and character development. The characters themselves are fun, quirky, and have unique personalities that come from a very good story writing. Each has their own style of quests and conversations with each other and Ryza. Their combat abilities are also fairly unique, although there is some duplication with two characters having bows and ranged weapons, for example. In combat, each character has their own combat style that makes playing each one a little different. You can switch between the active character you are playing in combat at any time, and it's fun to explore the different moves. Some battles are easier if you switch around during combat, as if you stay with just Ryza, she might not be able to damage a monster fully because of resistances. So switching to another character or your backup will allow different interactions that could bypass resist. A monster who is resistant to physical from Ryza will be weak to wind damage from Claudia, for example. There is so much more to go into detail here about all the inner workings and mechanics, but that would just need to be a whole separate video, so we won't do that here. Progressing through the game, we'll see Ryza enhancing her atelier or alchemy shop with different boosts and enhancements. The characters themselves gain strength from the normal level up process in battles, but also from doing specific quests unique for that character. Like Lint taking 500 damage in combat allows him to learn Vitality 1, which increases his total hit points, for example. Also, as each character levels up, their main in-combat abilities also get stronger and do more damage. There isn't a lot of control in this aspect of the game, nor innovation in the space, so it's kind of a letdown in that regards. Character and character development score, 6 out of 10. It's not bad, but it's not a trend-setting or amazing like the other one was. Next up, graphics and sound. The graphics in Atelier Ryza 2 are absolutely stunning in the unique anime style they are drawn in. You won't compare this to God of War, for example, and expect the same detailed graphics, but that's not to say it's not still amazing. The character designs are detailed and expressive with a fair amount of fan service, tickle bitties, and thick thighs. The only complaint I have here is there wasn't as many costume choices available as compared to Ryza 1, which had tons. I miss not being able to dress my characters up for dinner outfits or swimsuits at awkward moment cutscenes. That always made me laugh. The environments are incredibly colorful and immersive. You can take time to look around and smell the roses. There's a lot of detail all around you if you just stop to look. The music is right on par with Atelier Ryza 1, a very welcome and soothing soundtrack. From walking through the fields collecting regions with a delightful marching ballad, to upbeat battle sounds that create a sense of alertness and mystery. Another aspect I like about the soundtrack is if you can still enjoy it while playing but not be overbearing or distracting. Does the music fit so well that after a while you begin to not even notice it? That's just good scoring and immersion of the music into the game. The music is just plain fun. Graphics and sound score, 8 out of 10, and mainly because of the lack of customized gear and outfits. Finally, fun factor. The fun factor is high in this game. These Atelier series really do it for me with regards to gameplay, art style, music, and characters. Before I started playing Atelier Ryza 1, I didn't know I was into the gotta collect them all and craft new powerful items type of game style. I honestly spent an extra 4 or 5 hours in this game not progressing the story at all, but instead collecting regions and gear. One downside to collecting is bag space and inventory size. In Atelier Ryza 1, you could increase your bag size, and there seemed to be no inventory limits. But in Atelier Ryza 2, there was a hard limit and I couldn't increase it. That took away some of the fun as I had to destroy items just to make room for the others I just gathered. If you enjoy crafting, gathering, cute anime style art, and characters with good storyline, then this game is going to be a hit for you on the fun factor. I can't wait for Atelier Ryza 3 due out soon. Fun factor score, 10 out of 10. Now we get on to the overall score and final questions to answer. Is Atelier Ryza 2 worth playing? With a final score of 8 out of 10, I would say yes. This game would have scored higher, but I did hit it a little bit harder on the lack of innovation on character growth. Everything else was a step up from the original Ryza game. Number 2, do I have to play Atelier Ryza 1 first to understand part 2? Technically no, but I would say there is a big miss on understanding who the characters are and what their history is with each other. That is a major part of the game, and to not have that understanding would be a loss. There are other parts about crafting that were better explained in Ryza 1, and then they left it to just a summary of how to do crafting in Ryza 2, with more detailed tutorials around new mechanics, of course. But the original crafting mechanics were not as in-depth in Part 2. So if you picked up Ryza 2 first, you might have a bit of a learning curve on some of the mechanics. I would recommend maybe spend some time playing at least the first half of Atelier Ryza 1 before hopping into Part 2. Number 3, what about Atelier Ryza 3? With Atelier Ryza 3 about a month away at the time of this recording, I'm going to venture a guess that you can play it without playing the earlier ones just like Ryza 2. But we'll miss out on the connecting storyline and character development that took place in the earlier games. Stay tuned for a review of Atelier Ryza 3 when it comes out. Overall, Atelier Ryza 2 is a solid must-play game from my opinion, and thank you for sticking to the end of the video to find that out. Of course, if you like this video, please be sure to give it a thumbs up, and consider subscribing if you like retro to modern JRPGs, as we'll probably have a lot in common and we'll get along just fine. Until then, be excellent to each other, keep on gaming, and I'll see you next time.